So the object here is to win.
No dough, no show.
Sounds to me like you guys are a couple of bookies.
Show me the money.
Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Shane, also known as the Arbologist on X, joined as always by my two boys, Nick and Nick, Arb Father and Arb Thief. This week, we are going to talk about the edge we released on Friday in detail, the Prop Builder Edge. Boys, before we get started, how you guys doing today?
Doing great, bro. I'm happy. We released some of this information to a lot of people. A lot of people seem like they're loving it already and can't wait to talk about it.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen an edge like this since I've started arbitrage betting. It's probably the easiest live arbitrage betting that I've seen.
Yeah, tons of good feedback from a lot of OddsJam users, right? Just we're really anxious to see these calendars, toward the end of the month. We think it made a big difference to the community, and that was the reason we released it, was to bring it all to you guys. Let's get right into it. So what is the Prop Builder Edge, and how have we utilized it? What have our profit margins been? So, we studied it and got started on it a little bit earlier before we released it. I was on average like $1,000 a day through March. So if you guys saw my calendar in March and saw the 31K in profit, it was mainly derived. I did have positive expected value bets included in that, but it was, 90+% the Prop Builder tool. What about for you guys in March? Explain your experience to us.
Very similar, to be honest. I didn't average $1,000, but I think I made $18,000 last month doing ARB. So it's like $600 a day, and to be honest, I did that for 2 to 3 hours a night. So it was nothing strenuous, and made fucking insane money off this edge.
Yeah, I made about 10,000 last month, but the truth is I was away from work. I wasn't able to put in as much time as you guys were, but Shane, 30,000 in 1 month, man. We got the ARB father. You might be the prop father, man. You're killing it.
I love it. That's fun.
Yeah. Specific to this edge, right? And I took no time off. Like sleep was at a minimum. The brilliant part about it, just like our father said, was true. It was during the main slates. So I was only doing this from, let's say, 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night till roughly midnight or so on a push, right? I'd go to about midnight. So it's not the worst. Put in 3 hours. Put in maybe 3.5 hours. And pull in, I think the biggest day I had was $2,500. And of course that included a middle here and there, and some extra bonus bets I was still utilizing from new P2 accounts. But regardless, it was an insane day, and those kind of profit margins would only be possible with this kind of edge. So let's get into it, right? Let's describe what is the Prop Builder tool. So AF, go ahead and give us a quick breakdown of this tool in general.
Yeah, so the prop builder's been around for forever, pretty much as long as I've been betting, 5+ years. So basically what it is, it's player props, right? And a lot of offshores use the same third-party lines provider for this prop builder. You'll find it on many sites that I'm sure we're going to cover, but just to name a few, right? It's pretty famous on like Bet Online, Bovada, MyBookie, etc. So all it is, right? It's just player props, and forever they only had pregame lines, right? Until we discovered that they have live lines, and that's what the edge is, right? That's where the edge lies. Is going to be using the prop builder for live betting,
specifically live NBA. So time is short for you to utilize this for the rest of this season and into the playoffs, which is part of the reason we rushed the disclosure of this, is so that people could take advantage of it. We waited with anticipation as MLB opening day kicked off, hoping, praying that a live function would be available. But, alas, it did not happen. So we're going to have to live with that through the baseball season. Let's do this real quick. Let's go ahead and break down which books carry the Prop Builder tool. All right. And I put them into a tier list in a big thread I released yesterday. So I encourage you guys to go back and read that on my page at Arbologist on X. But let's start with tier 1 books. So through the month that we utilize this edge, we pretty much discovered every book that offers Prop Builder, because eventually they will limit you. And the idea is just to move on to another book that offers the same tool. So you're still in P1 land and just adding accounts to stay fresh and to keep the limits up. So these tier 1 books, they're based on limits. And when we talk about limits, they're preset in this situation. So they're usually bet to win 250. So in other words, the amount you bet is going to be very skewed depending on the odds. And any market you can win up to $250. And so these books are MyBookie, XBet, Bet Any Sport, Bovada, BetDSI, BUSR, and UWager. These are the ones that we discovered right off the bat because a lot of books have these preset limits on Prop Builder. We'll get into those books in a minute. And so they're down the tier list because obviously you're not able to place as much and hence your profit margins will be a little bit lower. So moving down to tier 2, really I only placed one book in this tier, and it's Bet Now. And that's because I quickly found out, or at least for me, that I could bet up to $200. There wasn't necessarily that limit of bet to win 250. It was basically you can bet $200 and or less depending on the odds. So it never really equaled as much profit as being able to bet to win 250. Hence I put it in a tier by itself, this moderate limit tier in tier 2. And then as we move on down, we have tier 3. These are the lower limits. These are usually bet to win 100 in my experience. And that's where you have Rebet, which actually does have a live function, Bet Online, Sports Betting AG, and a book we found out called Heritage, which I have no idea existed until we did this research. So post the thread, we've had a bunch of people reach out, really wondering how to find these prop builder tools. They're not familiar with the tool itself, and navigating to them through some of these offshores. I'm not going to say it's difficult, but I had to ask a few people when I first went on there where they're found, because it's not always called prop builder tool, right? It could be under something weird like same game parlays or under sports and then under props. So it's like they're never ever the same. Well, I can't say they never ever are. A few of the sister books are the same, but we fielded a lot of questions. So I'm going to refer you to the thread. If you look at the tier list to the right of those books, it's going to say found in, fill in the blank, found in same game parlays. If you look at Bet Any Sport, found under sports tab and then props. So use that thread to navigate to the tool itself. We talked about limits a little bit, right? This bet to win 250, this, can place 200, bet to win 100. But I'm going to break down the limits a little bit more, and I'm going to have my boys chime in a little bit here because it's a lot to talk about. So again, each market, typically we're going to use these tier 1 examples, these bet to win 250 market as examples. Usually you can bet on any specific market to hit that cap, meaning once you bet in that market, for example, over under points for a specific game, that market closes when you reach the $250 threshold. Hence the reason to have multiple prop builders at once to open up the amount of volume you can place in the market. One thing that's important to point out is that the overs have a separate market outside of the over-under tool. I'm sure you guys are very familiar with the 4+, 6+, 8+, markets when it comes to points, rebounds, assists, etc. Well, so that you're very clear, that same bet to 250 limit is separate. So if you're going to bet, let's say LeBron over 24 points in a game, and you're able to place 250 in the over-under tool, and it pops up again later, even if his number goes down or up or whatever, let's say it moves to score 26 points or whatever, you would not be able to bet it in the over-under tool because you've exhausted that limit, that cap limit to that market, so to speak. But it would be available if posted in the over points market outside of the over-under tool. This is very difficult to explain via audio, but if you go to the tool and you sort of click around, even on a pre-match, you should be able to find these markets so that you can understand where they're going to be when the game switches to live.
Yeah, that's a total game changer. I mean, just to be able to get down, basically double on that same market, right? Just by kind of finding this little workaround is huge, right? Like you said, it's important to have multiple prop builders, probably anyways, just to, be able to make the optimal amount of profit every night. But, being able to have this little workaround inside each individual prop builder is going to allow you to get down so many more bets, especially on smaller slates when there's only a couple games on. So
yeah, it makes a big difference. And it took us not too long, a couple days to figure out, a lot of this stuff as far as how many prop builders do we think we need to exhaust, to really push as much as we can to market. And I've found, typically I'll use 3, sometimes 4 on a really, really good night. So in other words, I might exhaust specifically the points market because I'll target those individually, even if the percentage is a little bit lower, because you can place more money on the books you're going to pit against it, which we'll talk about soon. Those points and those assist markets are typically a little bit more profitable than, say rebounds and some other secondary markets. And so just to be clear before we move on further, the same thing applies to your middle tier and low tier books, right? It's the same concept. You're just able to get less money down. All the same rules apply as far as cap limits to specific markets. So just play with that for a few nights. And like any other new concept you're getting into betting, I don't necessarily think you should come in night one and just be throwing max bets at it, right? You probably should ease into it with a level of, a bet size that's comfortable until that light switch goes off, which could be really soon, because especially if you're experienced in live arbing, it's not going to take long, right? It's just a different method of doing it. In fact, it's a very stable method of doing it, which is one of the main values of this edge is the stability of the market and how long some of these live arbs stay up for. So in other words, just ease into it. We always say that with any other new concept, and this is no different. Let's get into which books specifically we pit against these prop builder books and why, and which of these markets within these books can be most profitable. We'll start with FanDuel. And AT, why don't you give us a little bit of rundown of FanDuel and how you're experienced, even with a limited account, pitting it against prop builder?
Yeah, so FanDuel is actually the only domestic book that I've used to pit against prop builder, and it's been insanely profitable. So with FanDuel, there are over under lines. So for example, over under 5.5 assists. If it's a typical over under line, there's usually a max win of about $100, right? However, if it is an over line and only the offer side is offered, so for example, 6+ rebounds, 10+ points, those typically have a much higher limit, which means we can get down more on FanDuel and also more on Prop Builder. And those are typically the ones that I'll attack. If I see it's a typical under on FanDuel, I might not bother with it unless it's a huge ROI. But if it's an over on FanDuel, I know I can get down more, and I'll probably make between 15, 20, or 50+ dollars on one arbitrage bet against Prop Builder. So try to target the overs on FanDuel, and you'll be able to get down a lot more money.
Yeah, it's crazy when you build an efficiency, high enough to be able to to pass up certain arb percentages. Like that's how good this edge is that you're seeing opportunities and you're like, man, I'll wait for something better when typically that would not happen before. Understanding the market and understanding exactly which ones are most profitable, just like AT explained, is a big deal to maximize profit, right? Because again, it coincides with the fact that there's a limit cap. So in other words, if you're going to expend your limit on a lower ROI or a lower rebound, under type bet, you're going to say expend, 50, 60, $100 of your 200 to win 250 cap. You're winning money. It's not a bad thing. Don't hear me wrong, but you're also limiting your higher end profit margins in doing so.
Yeah, and one pro tip, let's say you're using the OddsJam Live Arbitrage tool, and on FanDuel it pulls up over 5.5 rebounds. Well, I know that I can only have a max win of $100 on that. So what I'll do is I'll close that out. I'll go into the game on FanDuel, find the rebound props, look for 6+ instead. For whatever reason, over 5.5 is a max win of $100. 6+, which is inherently the same thing, could have a max win of $150, sometimes even $250. So look for that 6+, 10+ over instead of the over 5.5 or over 9.5.
Yeah, that's a good point. I haven't tried that. I've usually just taken whatever OddsJam pops up, which is typically, to its credit, a lot of times it is the 4+, 6+, 8+ category, but I haven't manually gone back and switched. So that's a really good tip that I'm going to take on board. Let's move into the next book, and we're gonna talk about DraftKings. And let's just start by describing the limits of DraftKings, right? There are two limits in my experience. One is I don't know what you want to call it, semi-limited. Maybe it's the 10% limit that's similar to FanDuel in that sense. But it's a market where you can still place some good money specifically on over props. So you're going to kind of ignore the under props for the majority of this conversation on DraftKings, and you're going to be sticking to overs. More detailed is the same type of overs in those alt markets, the 6 plus, 10 plus, 12 plus. Again, you can lay down way more money, and I think it's going to shock you what you can get in on a limited DraftKings account in those markets. AF, talk to me about your experience with DraftKings.
No, yeah, I was totally surprised on the amounts of money that they were letting us get down on some of these. Usually I'm expecting them to just, hit me back and say, you can only bet $50, right? So I think the first time I did, I just typed in $1,000, knew it was going to get kicked back. And it came back at like, $250 to win 500 or something on points, which was absolutely nuts. So like you said, I mean, that's not a death limited account, but that's an account that's been limited for, almost a year now. And it was still letting me do that. Some of the other stuff was much smaller. Assist, I think, was to win. Sometimes 100, sometimes 250. It can definitely vary. So you always want to make sure you check your limits. Rebounds, usually to win 100. And then everything else is a lot smaller, like threes and PRA, maybe to win 75. So I usually don't target those unless they're like a crazy percent. And like you mentioned, all the unders are going to be much smaller. But any of these over markets, especially points, if you see them, attack them.
Yeah, and a lot of this can be slate dependent too. I know you're getting information from the fire hose here, guys. This is a very detailed edge to talk about, and we're trying to fit it into a 30 to 45-minute podcast time frame. But we're doing our best here, and so what I was going to get at is you got to think about the slate as a whole too. It's a Monday tonight. There's only 2 games. So in other words, you can be a little bit more frugal, so to speak, with which bets you're going to place because there's only 2 games. So you're not going to necessarily be as picky on a slate with 2 games as you would be tomorrow when there's 10 games. That's when you're going to really pick through and wait for those more profitable opportunities because they're going to be there, right?
Definitely. I always look at what the slate looks like before I decide what types of arbs I want to take. If it's a large slate, I might stick to 5% arbs or higher. If it's a smaller slate, well, I might only take 2 or 3% arbs as my minimum. So definitely adjust what you're taking based on the size of the slate.
Yeah, that's a good point. And just for filter options, so you guys know, on a typical night, I set my filters to 4+%, which is pretty damn good for live NBA arbs. And then, I'm kind of attacking the more higher end ROIs that you see. So we're talking, 6, 7, 8, 10 plus. But that's not to say I won't hit, a 4.25 or a 5%er. That's, especially in the points market where I know I'm going to be able to get down a significant amount of capital. All right, let's move on to another book that we have had a lot of success with, pitting it against this prop builder edge, and that is Fliff. AF, go ahead and tell me a little bit about your Fliff experience.
That experience has been very well. As everybody knows, Fliff has really good limits in general. It's usually like $1,000 limits. We're obviously not gonna, use all that in this situation, but them just offering that much is great, right? And then to be honest, the value's there, right? It's not as much as FanDuel. It might be pretty close to DraftKings in terms of volume, but the only thing with Fliff, it's a little sketchy still locking these in. So you definitely kind of have to be strategic in the way that you lock these in. The prop builder tends to sit up for, a couple minutes sometimes, right there. They're just kind of stale lines that are just sitting there. It's why the edge is so big. So Fliff, you definitely want to try to lock that side in first every single time, right? Fliff can be a little wacky sometimes. And show the line, and then you type in your money, submit the bet, and then it locks. A lot of times it will come back within a 30 seconds or a minute. You can try it again, and I have pretty good success of it going through. But you would never want to hit that prop builder side first, and then catch yourself in that situation. So definitely try to attack that Fliff side first, and then move over to the prop builder.
That's a good point about which books to attack first. Then that's spot on with Fliff, right? Because that can move around even while that ticket's trying to populate, right? And it does quite often. So you kind of want to see that lock in first and then go back to prop builder. It doesn't mean you won't get one-sided, but it does mean that, you have a much better chance of locking in the ARB as a whole. Going back to that same concept with DraftKings and FanDuel, each of us probably do it a little bit differently. The reason I like to lock in the FanDuel and DraftKings sides first is because often you have in a bad case scenario, you have the option of cashing out or, taking a small loss or sometimes a win. I've had it where, many times where I set the bet on FanDuel. It was the wrong line. The line closes or the market moves on Prop Builder. I go to look at cash out and I just made $12. You know, it probably means I got great plus EV, but what is my threshold of risk in that scenario? And often, maybe AT can back me up, I just cash out. I just don't like the risk of having, let's say, $200 on the line when I know I have $15, $12 sitting right in front of me. What do you think, AT?
I'm with you. I definitely don't like to let it ride. Cash out if the line moves and you don't have another choice.
So that's just a little tip for you guys in involving like which ones you want to hit first. It's by no means the letter of the law. We're not telling you it's the best way to do it. It's the way I like to do it. It's the way I've built my efficiencies.
And I will say one thing to push back a little bit, right? And some people might be asking this question. I know when AT did his stream the other day, a lot of people were asking this question. Which side is value? We kind of already said it, right? It's the prop builder side. It's pretty stale for the most part. So sometimes I will just lock in that prop builder side, especially if I can see the tool and I see, DraftKings and FanDuel are at both at plus 200, right? Meaning their minus side's probably at minus 300, minus 400. And I can get prop builder at minus 140, minus 150. That's an extreme discount, right? I'm just going to lock in the value. Then I'm going to go try to hit the other side. If I can go grab that 10% ARB, amazing. If it drops down to a smaller ARB, it's still crazy EV, right? So I'll just usually let it ride in that sense. So like these guys said, there's no right or wrong way to do it. If you're open to a little more risk in in your game at this point, then that's a decent strategy to take as well.
Yeah, the plus EV value of this edge as a whole is insane too. Like if you didn't want to ARB and you're a live, plus EV guy, yeah, you're going to be salivating because it's pretty bonkers. So there have been examples so extreme where it doesn't really pop up in a live EV calculator that I've seen, but I'm just looking at the arbitrage market and I open up the market before I place the ARB and I see it is so off the market. I mean, dollars off the market. And at that point, I have in the past just been like, I'm about to max this particular play on every prop builder I have, to win 250 across the board. I've done that more than once and luckily it's cash, but I bet on such a discount on a very favorite side too, that I felt comfortable doing so, risking, several $100s, but the payout, which it did pay out in these instances, was big. So, something to keep an eye on is as you're looking at these, when you open up the market and you're looking at, which side is EV or however you're going about it, you're going to notice really quickly the difference in the lines. This edge has been live for roughly, since Friday, so a few days now. And we've already had some users reach back out to us and say, well, my XBet, account's already been limited. These prop builder tools, they will limit you just like any other book. Often the limits are kind of separate from the book as a whole. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong on that. But when you get limited on prop builder, you're usually going to be limited down to a specific bet size, which sometimes is not going to be very, as profitable. Probably still good for EV, but as far as live ARBs go, you're gonna probably move on to other prop builders and other books. So let's talk to AT a little bit, and I think he has some insight on possibilities of keeping these prop builder tools alive a little bit longer.
Yeah, so I've had my XBet account for over a month. Actually, just got limited yesterday, but to last a month on these prop builders is a really long time. So there are a few things that you can do to help your accounts last longer. This is the same for domestic books as well, but on my XBet for prop builder, I have done 0 pregame. So obviously I have my pregame notifications on with OddsJam, but I know specifically for these prop builders, don't do any pregame. That's the first way they're going to limit you, probably the fastest. After that, I also would not hit a line more than once. So let's say you hit it once for $100, pops up again, don't hit it again for $100. You're better off just getting down, $250 one time rather than betting on it twice. That's the second thing. The third thing, if you are depositing, I think it's okay to take the bonuses that they offer you. However, I'm not converting any bonuses until I get limited. So I think once you do those bonus conversions, you're betting them on like high odd plays. I think that gets you limited a little bit faster as well. So those are 3 things you can do. Avoid pregame, don't hit the same line twice, don't convert your bonuses until after you're limited. And I think hopefully you'll be able to last a month like I did.
Yeah, we haven't been doing this long enough to really digest which accounts are lasting longer than others. AT said his XBet lasted a month. Well, mine lasted, maybe closer to 3 weeks or something like that. We probably have very similar activity on these accounts. So why did one last a week longer than the other, a week and a half longer than the other? Why did my U wager get limited in one day? We don't have the answers to those questions yet, or even like really ideas of exactly how or why. So, give us some feedback on your account length. How has this journey gone for you? How long did you have specific accounts? Because as a community, as we capture these metrics, it will help to share, and so we can sort of educate the rest of the folks out there on limits and how long these accounts are lasting. But the beauty is there are so many of them, right? We say this in the thread as well. There are several top tier books that you can rotate through. So if you're using 2 or 3, one goes down, you just add another one, and so on and so forth. We're not going to get into it in this podcast specifically, but P2 accounts with offshores accounts, logistically, they're much, much easier. We'll address that maybe at a later date. That's a good note to keep in the bank there. But it's a lot easier to reboot these offshore P2s than it is domestics. Okay, we're going to do something special in this podcast. We're going to have an impromptu guest here. His name's Cross. He's a very high-end user, OddsJam affiliate as well. He is a live streamer of this existing prop builder edge, among many other things, a huge plus EV bettor, just a very successful and profitable bettor in general. So we're going to bring him onto the podcast right now and sort of pick his brain and ask a few questions about his experience with prop builder. Cross, my friend, how you doing today?
Yo, what's good, guys? I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. Can't wait to talk about this, man. It's been going crazy.
Yeah, dude, I know you're doing it busy down there in New York or whatnot at train stations, but dude, we're glad you could join us.
Yeah, I'm currently waiting for my train right now, so there's going to be some chatter in the background. You got, there's thousands of people out here.
Well, dude, so we brought you in, I think at least I think 2 days earlier before we put the thread out, right? Because we wanted to specifically give it to some folks we knew who would use it successfully and quickly, and get some feedback on how it's gone before we launched the thread and got it out to everyone. So tell us how it's been for you so far. What kind of profit margins are you seeing, and was this even like when we sort of brought it to you, what was your expectation, and what is it now that you've had it for several days?
Yeah, so I mean, I've already been live arbing for most of my volume before you guys told me about the edge, and I'm doing pretty well. But when I started testing out these offshores, I'd already been kind of I hadn't even opened up any offshores at that point. I only had Bet Online really, and I was like, this is the perfect time to really explore that whole realm of offshore books. So I loaded up those books. I was careful about the rollover and made sure I was able to get the right amount of money in there, comfortable amount. And man, these live props, the cool thing is they just stay there for a long time. I showed it on my stream. I did one last night, and I kind of just explained and showed people like how long these lines are lasting. Like you're able to get these live arbs in quick, and that's the thing I think a lot of people were talking to me about. Is everyone was like, dude, how are you getting these in so quickly? How are you live arbing? And this is the perfect practice. Like the first step is this prop builder edge. It gives you enough time to really get both of them down and get the math right. And yeah, like really it is unbelievable how more efficient this edge has made live arbitrage. And I mean, you can see the buzz in the community. Everyone's going crazy about it. And so far, I mean, profit margin, right? I kind of just started this month, and the first 2 days of the month, I crossed 1K on the first and 1.3 on the second. And so far, 6 days in April, I'm up almost $4.5 grand.
That's pretty.
Those are sick. Yeah, sick results.
Pretty crazy. And I think that, Cross mentioned something very important here that I kind of want to touch on, right? Is people can really get overwhelmed, right, when it comes to live arbing. It's obviously, the next level up, from pregame. Pregame's pretty easy. Almost anybody can probably do it. But live arbs can be tough, right? There's definitely a learning curve. I think this is the perfect example of kind of bridging that gap, right, between pregame and live arbs. If you were live arbing or trying to live arb before this edge and you struggled, then maybe you gave up on it, I would definitely reconsider hitting up Odds Jam, hitting up Randall, hitting up, one of us, and getting another free trial to at least try this edge, right? Like Shane said, there's not much time left anyways. There's a couple weeks left of NBA season, a regular season, and then we do have roughly like a month left of playoffs. So, like any edge, you want to hit it pretty hard. You want to get on there while it lasts. This is much easier than pretty much any other edge we've ever seen. So capitalize while it's here.
Yeah, exclamation point on the best live arb edge we've ever used. The fact that it's tied to the NBA, which is the king of all, money makers when it comes to profit and live arbs. This is the time, and we could only wish we would have discovered this a little bit before now, so we'd have longer to take advantage of it. But there is the rest of the season, so just like AF said, a few weeks and into the playoffs. Even though the playoffs you'll have smaller slates. I mean, I've had nights where I've come in late from something personal, right? Only maybe I catch the late games, the 2 10 o'clock games for West Coast, whatnot, because I'm on the East Coast, and still profited like 650. And we're talking like in a matter of, an hour and a half. So that's the power and the profit margins of this edge if you're able to capitalize and become efficient. Cross, let's talk a little bit about your live streams. I know you plan on doing some more. And then I want to talk a little bit about this competition that OddsJam's sort of putting out to all individuals willing to live stream their sessions for Prop Builder. I think they're coming up with a prize pool, some sort of idea for, cash rewards for top performers. But, your live stream just the other day was huge. I know it had a lot of viewers. I think it's huge for the community to see this stuff live, to understand how it takes place. You can't really dispute the fact when you see it happening on the screen, man. What do you think of the power of that?
Yeah, no, this, like I'm saying earlier, the buzz around this is just creating such a big amount of volume around the community. In terms of just last night with the first stream, I had at one point amount of viewers watching at the same time, 3.2K, and that's the first time I've ever streamed. So it was crazy that many people tuned in. And like you were talking about with the challenge, I was trying to beat Arb Thief's $225 challenge in an hour, right, with live arbitrage using this edge. And we came short a little bit. We were at 170, but like I was telling people on the stream, $170 in an hour, you're still, that's insane money. That's more than anybody's really making in their typical 9 to 5. And it was just in an hour, at 6:15 to 7:15. And that's usually when everyone's home from work anyway. So like you can easily lock in and make that. You do that every day for the month. In the month, you're looking at really good, extra income. And go ahead.
I know the timing was bad too, because we discussed it post your stream yesterday, but tell us what you locked in. Of course, it had to happen right after your live stream. Tell us about your experience post live.
Yeah, right. Of course. So, and it's funny too, the day before the stream, I was like, there's not many games on. I'm going to be strategic about this. I'm going to just do it at 6:15 tomorrow when there's like 5 games on. And that first night I ended up making 770. And in an hour, I was already up like 300 and something. And then I'm like, all right, whatever, we'll hit it again tomorrow. So yesterday, I locked in at 6:15 to 7:15. We made 170. And then I cut the stream. And I, put my head down and grinded away, and I ended up making $700 total. So,
yeah,
of course, right?
Timing and law of averages on that. If there was a line to bet that you would have beaten the 225, I would have laid quite a bit on the over with the amount of games that was happening during your stream.
100%, yeah, and that's what I was kind of trying to tell people as well. And some of my tweets afterwards is like, I started noticing a little trend for me personally, even when there's not even that many games, like later in the night. I mean, these discrepancies with the prop builder were just popping up, especially to Fliff, man. These like crazy 8 to 12% arbs on these prop builders to Fliff. It's just crazy. You can make like $50 to $70 just off of one live arbitrage bet. I mean, that is crazy.
Yeah, there's usually a few of those a night that really pops off your profit margins. Usually comes in the points market or some other book that has much higher limits, like a Fliff, where you can just get a lot of money in the market at a huge profit margin. So huge. What I noticed about Fliff too is really targeting that book specifically during stoppages. For some reason, the lines get skewed and they might stick there for long enough to take advantage of it.
Yeah, most definitely. I think most all of them I hit were right at halftime, exactly, and
Halftime.
they just were staying there like plus,
Yeah.
and they're usually the side that loses too. So I know a lot of people are always like, oh, Fliff, sometimes voids my bet and something like that. Like you were saying in your thread and chatting to people in the community before, it's that prop builder side, that side of the arbitrage is usually the side that is consistently winning. I don't know if other people, like you were saying, we need more people, more volume in this to really get down the right numbers. But that side, I mean, my offshore books, the bankroll is just consistently growing.
Yeah, I think as you go, and AF can talk to this a little bit too, I'll let him chime in, but it kind of goes back and forth. I would say that prop builder is probably earning a little bit better, i.e. that's the side that's usually off. But in any given night, it can kind of fluctuate back and forth. I've had days where my domestics literally take it all. And that's just going to come with more, the more nights you get in, the more you'll see it fluctuate a little bit back and forth.
No, yeah, totally. And I think I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but for our EV bettors out there, 90% of the time that prop builder side is going to be the plus EV side, right? So, like Shane said, it does fluctuate, back and forth. You will see your FanDuel, DraftKings, Fliff, etc., go up pretty big in balances every now and then. But overall, for the month or so that I've been doing this, I mean, almost all my profit eventually landed on the offshores, right? I actually just cashed out a bunch of my offshores the other day because I'm like, all right, fucking 20 grand in offshores right now. Let me let me move some back to the bank, right?
Yeah.
I trust these guys, but still,
Yep. You don't want to let it get too high. And then, yeah, I'm at the point now where I'm looking to withdraw, but I don't, I'm at that point where I don't necessarily want to yet because I'm still putting, they haven't limited me and I'm not really, I don't want to take out 6K and have them look at my account and see, 200 player props in the last, 3 days, but play that close to the vest and see how we do. One thing you mentioned that I definitely want to reiterate is the plus EV side, right? So our friends in these limited market states, and Cross, I want you to chime in on this too if you haven't thought about it, but I'm sure you have. But a lot of our limited market state guys, right? California, Texas, Florida, these things, they have access to these offshore books. So which means they have access to prop builder and the odds. And they, for all intents and purposes, can use this to EV bet probably to a profit margin unseen in these limited market states.
Yeah, 100%. My mom actually, my mom lives in Florida, and I lived there for 2 years. So I know about the states that don't have a lot of action in terms of sports books. They just have Hard Rock over there, and not before too long ago. Now you got Fliff, Profit X, you got all these exchanges and sports sweepstakes books that you can operate over there. So there's just more opportunity there. And like you said, these offshore books you can use anywhere. And I don't know if a lot of people know this too, but with offshores, if you're using two devices with it too, you can throw on a VPN for the offshore books if they're not allowing you in your state, and it works very well. I know a lot of domestic books don't allow that, and but with the offshores, I can definitely attest that it works to use a VPN if your location is blocked.
Yeah, that's a big tip because I think there's a lot of edges to this. If you're not able to live arbit, I think there's other ways to take advantage of it. And the positive expected value edge of this is extreme. Obviously, you're introducing variance. You'll probably have some days that don't go your way when they fluctuate with the domestic books. But overall, we've said it enough times that the EV side is typically on the prop builder side.
Yeah, and I mean another thing I really wanted to kind of bring up to the community and talk amongst ourselves about is these whole streaming, right? The whole idea of streaming, right? Our buddy AT streamed this past week, right, and made $225 profit in an hour, right? And he did that, and he had 100 something people join his Google Meets call, and it was pretty sick, right, to reveal this entire thing to a bunch of people for the first time. After that, we posted his results, and the OddsGym CEO Restivo actually quote tweeted it and said, "If anybody can beat this $225 goal in an hour, I'll match it pretty much dollar for dollar." So the first taker was Cross. He came up a little bit short, but pretty positive. He's going to give it another go, and he'll beat it by far.
Yeah, it's definitely.
But I think the cooler thing I'm looking forward to, so all you guys, depending what day this comes out, you'll probably already see it. But one of us or Odds Jim themselves potentially might throw out a tweet, right? And we're going to try to come up with a competition to make this cool, right? Get everybody involved and try to give away some free cash. I don't know exactly what the competition will detail just yet, but I think it's going to be along the lines of, whoever live streams on X for 1 hour, you just jot down your profit, right? We're going to see how many people can do this. If we get 10 people, we get 20 people. I might personally do it myself, right? And maybe the top 3 earners will earn, say, I don't know, $1,000 for first place. If you make the most profit out of everybody, maybe second place 500, third place 250, and maybe we'll just come up with some, participation type thing as well. Like, hey, if you at least beat $250 in that hour, even if you didn't come in the top 3, you'll earn $100 or something like that. I think this is a great time, leading into the slower time of year, right when the dog days of summer and stuff come, and it's just baseball and women's basketball and tennis and stuff, right? This is a great time before that, that slower time comes to kind of, hype up the community, show everybody it's possible, and just, engage with everybody and make a shit ton of money for the next month or so.
Yeah, I think the brilliance of these live streams, like I mentioned before, is really showcasing to the people the reality of this situation, right? And how you can, profit from it. And so our boy Cross, talk to us a little bit, buddy, about some upcoming streams. I know you plan on going back to live.
Of course, man. I had such a blast on my first stream last night. It was just so much fun. I loved seeing the community just all engage with the stream and people commenting. I was trying to ask questions while locking these arbs in. The multitasking was definitely difficult. Yeah. But I'm super excited. Like Arb Father was saying, I mean, we got some competitions coming up. I think what would be kind of cool, I don't know if you guys like this idea, but it'd be cool if there was some kind of like playoff thing implemented in sort of like the NBA playoff, right? Like see people, go head to head in a way.
A bracket.
And, yeah, right, like a bracket. That'd be kind of sick. But besides that, myself personally, I'm going to keep streaming even after this edge because, guys, I know a lot of people were saying, well, when this edge goes away, like I wish you guys wouldn't, tell everyone about this edge. The thing is, man, I mean, we're not trying to gatekeep anything. And, there's a lot of profit to go around. I mean, we're trying to take these books' money, like they don't deserve the money. So, I mean, we're really trying to just help the community out. And after this edge goes away, after the NBA is done, who knows what's coming next? Like there's always going to be a new edge. And I'm going to make sure I'm streaming. I know a lot of other people will be streaming. And I'm going to do some giveaways. I really want to try to implement that as well. Just get the community involved and do some giveaways if we hit a certain goal. And I think it'll be really cool. I'm really excited to see where it goes.
I love that, dude. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. My 2 years of doing this, there's always something, right? When I first came on, it was something. Then, Fliff was a huge book, kind of like in the middle of my journey. That was just an easy edge, pregame, live, FanDuel to Fliff was just nonstop, right? Then that ended. I got on to another edge, right? It was FanDuel and Bovada live player props. Then Bovada pulled their player props, right? So I had 3 months of crushing that. They took that off. Pretty much all of us, I mean, I don't really know if you want to call it an edge or not, but something that, something new that came to us, right, this past fall was all these exchange books. And the first couple months these exchanges were here, it was, so many pregame player props that were just, endless volume, endless profits, right? Those kind of tapered down a little bit pregame, as I think they've got bigger customer bases. The lines haven't been as good, but now we have this edge, and who knows how long this will last. Hopefully it lasts all this year, comes back next year, and we can, ride the coattails of it. But if not, there's going to be something else.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we find out about it and once we test it and make sure it's solid, we'll do our best to bring it to the community. I mean, that's what we do. So, it's a hell of a ride. This episode was intense. You could probably notice by the speed of my, talking. I'm usually a little bit more put together, but this is exciting. So again, it was from the fire hose today, really, right? So we put out a shit ton of information. Refer back to the thread. A lot of it's in there. We're always open to more comments, more discussion. If you figure out, more efficiencies with this process in the short period of time that we have left, please do so. Hit any of us up on a DM. We'll see what we can do to help you out. It's a new process. We're trying to be patient with each and every one of you as you sort of like steer through this maze and figure out these offshores, because a lot of people have not attacked them yet. But with this edge, there's just no reason to sit back And just a reminder, guys, that a lot of these, I have to say, none of these are available without the platinum package, right? To get the live odds, to get the offshore odds, you're going to have to reach out to Randall, reach out to OddsJam. I think it's like self-serve now, where you can pretty much sign up for platinum on your own without having to address OddsJam themselves. But I can all but guarantee you that you're going to earn your money back within, I know, you tell me, Cross, 2 days, 3 days max, even for the average user.
Oh, 100%. That's something even before I started streaming, I was even telling my friends here in New York. It's just like, you get on that 7-day free trial, man, you're making your subscription back within that 7-day free trial, no doubt, like 100%. And it just goes to show, especially, I don't know if you guys are making a episode about it or have talked about it before, but the Edge Boost card, man. I mean, if you use that card with these domestic books, I mean, I made $600 last month using it, and that basically, there you go, pays for your platinum plan plus an extra $100. So, you know, it's really, there's ways to make the money, and it's really, don't get scared about these subscription costs. You know, they're there for a reason. It's the value in it, and you'll be super profitable. So just give it a shot.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack here. Mentioning the Edge Boost card was brilliant because the synergy and all these things to earn that extra edge, to earn that extra cash, it's nuts. I mean, AF, what were your Edge Boost results last month?
Yeah, I didn't even go that hard, to be honest, but I still walked away with over $2,000 profit off the Edge Boost card. So there's literally no reason to not use this card. We're throwing money constantly in and out of accounts, so might as well get cash back on it.
Yeah, guys, and just so you're aware, with this Edge Boost card, particularly, we're talking about, cycling the bankroll on these limited accounts that we're, pitting against prop builders. So these FanDuels, DraftKings, things that quickly you can withdraw your money from, get access to, and then just reinsert that same capital back into those accounts. And you can churn. I think my average is about 6,000 to 7,000 a day. When you do the math on that, you're reaching upwards of $1,000 a month at a 0.5% return on your deposit. So it's just synergy on top of that stuff, man. And every little edge matters.
I really encourage people to ask questions, ask any of us questions. We'll answer them, and also just because we're on this side of it, we're not necessarily the pros, right? We just have the experience, and that doesn't mean we can't learn from you guys. I learned from a lot of people that might tell me a tip or two. So definitely just like engage in the community. We all bounce ideas off each other. We all figure it out. We're all on the same team, right? So that's, I guess, what I would say to end this off for me.
Yeah. I love it, man. Thank you for joining us. Give us your X handle so we can make sure we know how to track you.
Yeah, for sure. You can follow me on X at Cross the Odds, KROSS the Odds, and yeah, just come check it out. I'll be streaming on there for sure. Streaming on there and Twitch. So yeah, stay tuned. Stay tuned for these. Stay tuned for these challenges we got coming up, especially for this playoff season. It's going to be exciting. We'll see what we can do.
Yeah, we'll get those details out as soon as we can. AF, you got anything?
No, man, that's it. I think this was a great episode. Anybody that had extra questions about this strategy and edge, if this doesn't cover it, then I don't know what else to say. But no, thank you, Cross Bro, for joining. This was awesome. I love having guests on here, and hopefully we'll get you back on here another time too. So,
yeah, that'd be sick, man. I was excited. I love your guys' podcast, and I just appreciate you guys having me on, man. It was fun.
Yes, sir. Well, thanks for everybody for joining us today. Just a reminder, all comments, questions, specifically with this prop builder out there now, you can refer direct messages to @BTO_podcast at X. We'll be happy to help you guys out. Thanks for joining us, guys, and we'll see you next week.